man, you know, and it was so difficult. Right, I think we're live now. So I think if we went to my page, we'd probably see our ugly mugs going live. So welcome, Matthew Toman. I had to start with you on my new series of interviews. So glad you could join me, and so pleased that you were up for it, doing it on the spur of the moment as well. So welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for giving me no notice whatsoever, Nicola, but that's probably...
Well, you know, I like to catch people by surprise because you get the truth out of them then. Right, so Matthew and I met in, that's not strictly true actually, we met in Vegas in person, didn't we, in the mastermind I went to, and it was an amazing event, but we'd already sort of had a bit of a chat on Skype and stuff before, but nobody else knows who you are in my world, so do tell us who you are and what you do, and you know, how we got on so well and why.
Okay, so my name is Matthew Toman, and I am a film producer, but I also own a digital agency, which is Bankhouse Media. But I have been going to a bug-free mind for 4 years now, and Peter Hallam is a really good friend of mine, and I had been speaking to him, and he kept referencing you and said, look, you need to chat with Nicola, you need to meet with Nicola. And at that point, you know, I always take his word for it, because everything he says, I think is quite accurate. So I reached out to you and just said, look, do you want to jump on a quick call? And we end up meeting that way via Skype way before we ever met in person, which was great. But so I was always a film producer. I left school at 16, and I worked in various different jobs from when I was a teenager, washing cars, cutting grass, ran out the doors of school. I did not like it. I didn't find out till a few years later that I was actually dyslexic. I struggled with school. I was good with maths, but it didn't happen for a couple of years later that I was actually... That's what actually came about, that I actually was dyslexic, and that's what. But at that point, I didn't really care, and I'd already got my own business, and everything was great. I left school at 16, and I got into a trade, and I bought my first house when I was 19. I then went on to buy another one when I was around 21, 22. I bought another one. I invested in various different businesses, and I was traveling all over the world, having a ball in my 20s, and then it all went a bit pear-shaped just around the recession time. I was working as a refrigeration engineer, and I had property, and I had invested in various different businesses, so I had cash flow coming from everywhere. And then when everything started to go downwards, I was living in Dublin at the time. I'd moved from Northern Ireland into Dublin. I've been in Dublin for 9 years. I travel back and forth to the States now, but at that point I was living here and I was working here. Things started to go downhill, and I was thinking, oh my God, there was the uncertainty of it all. I didn't know what really was coming and what was going to happen. So I ended up losing my job. The houses were going one by one. I had the businesses that I've invested in were all being, same thing was happening. And it was a very strange time, because for the first time in my life, the money was going down, and I didn't have any. I didn't have any spare cash, and I wasn't making any at the time. And I was on unemployment in Ireland. It was 188 quid a week, which is actually quite high, to be honest, compared to the UK.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you don't get anything like that in England.
Try living in Dublin though, on 188 quid a week, you'd be lucky.
Let's just cap for the watchers. So this was at the time, you know, what was it called? The the tiger economy or something?
Yeah, it was the tiger, the Celtic tiger.
The Celtic and the Celtic tiger, and the economy was booming, and pop stars were moving to Dublin, and everybody was making pots of money, and it was just an amazing time, wasn't it?
Dublin was booming. Dublin was flying. Like, I mean, there was so much money around. There was so much money being spent, and I was a part of that. I can remember once I bought a car on the internet, you know, and got it delivered. I didn't even see it. It was like an absolute it was like a classic car, and my uncle thought I was crazy, but look, I ended up. It is what it is, but. I had a ball back then, but how happy was I? I'm not really sure how happy I was. But at the time, I ended up, I ended up being on unemployment and sort of found myself with nothing to do whenever I woke up, and no real commitments of landlord, tenants, houses. I had nothing, and it was weird. I was like, what do I do? For the first couple of weeks to maybe months, it was great because I still had some cash, and I was out partying and drowning my sorrows, essentially. But then whenever I was waking up hungover, I was thinking, oh my God, what is going on with my life, you know? So I spent a couple of years, looking back now, it took about 2 years, but I spent a couple of years really soul searching. I joined an acting class just to do something completely different. I read a book, The Secret, and I started reading like The Monk that Sold His Ferrari, all these different like books, and I started looking at positive quotes on Facebook. I don't even think Instagram was really big back then, but like on Facebook, I read like Bob Doyle's book. I'd read all these different, I started to read them I just had got an iPad before I lost my job. And I found that reading I felt like I'd got a new lease of life, because I don't know what it was, but reading with the light behind it, I just seemed to be able to fly through scripts, fly through books. I was there reading everything. I was like, God, I've never been able to read.
Okay, so you never be able to read normal books, but reading online was much easier for you.
I don't know what it was, with whether it was the light or what it was behind it, but for some reason it was much easier, and I could just power read through things. And also audio books were kind of coming out then, but you used to have to buy them on iTunes. It wasn't like Audible or anything. You used to have to like go on to iTunes and buy someone's book. So Richard Branson's book, all these different things. I was buying books, and at that time I was just listening to them, walking to the gym, in the gym. And I didn't have much money at that time at all, if any, at times. And it was tough enough, but I did sort of think, right, okay, I need to stay really focused and see, what do I want to do? I knew I didn't want to do anything in my own life. I knew I didn't want to do anything, but... No
more fridges for you.
I know, yeah, definitely not. It got me around the world, though. I lived out in Australia for a while doing air conditioning, so that was great.
Oh, okay.
It served me well, and it taught me how to manage a team. All the stuff that I'm doing now, I learned that in my teens and 20s in the jobs that I was in.
Nothing's ever wasted.
Never wasted, yeah. Every day is a school day, but I ended up, so I went through and I joined an acting class, and in the first 3 months, I ended up getting cast in a movie. At that point, I didn't realize that I wasn't that good of an actor. I needed a director. But he ended up casting me in another movie, which was a bigger part. It was a low-budget feature film, and the director and the producer ended up parting ways in the middle of it, and I was thinking, what are you doing? This movie has to get finished. You know, I'm in it. I know I'm an actor. It has to be out there. So he said, I just asked, like, what has to be done? And he said, it needs to be finished. And I said, well, what do you have to do? And he gave me a book, what a producer does. And back to old school books, I think I got to chapter 3.
So the director stayed and the producer went, and you started learning how to be a producer.
Well, I finished the movie, which then went on to be screened. It got distribution, and it went all over the place. It was a low budget horror feature film. I was in it as a supporting lead, playing a cop, and I wanted to get it finished because I was in it and I was an actor and I wanted to be out. But what I realized...
hang on, no, you're not getting away with it that easy. Is it available to watch online anywhere?
It probably is. I haven't seen it. It's called The Ecstasy of Isabel Mann. But there's a few other ones. I actually done, like, I did a couple of movies, and they are out there, yeah. But so I ended up finishing that movie, and what I realized through that time period was that I loved the hustle bustle, going back on behind set, and I loved kind of like, I just loved the buzz of it. And what I found was a lot of people in the creative world can't talk about money. I don't know why, but directors, writers, and actors, you said to them, can you do this job? How much is it?
It's a dirty topic in the creative
industry. I don't know, it's weird. But because I had been used to talking about money with tenants not paying me from I was 19 at times, you know, I was like, around say you owe me 3 months rent, you know, whenever I was 20, and always having my own businesses, really, albeit small, whenever I was in my teens. I had never had a problem having a conversation about money and just explaining that this is how much it's going to cost and this is what we have to do. So we end up, we went through that, and that ended up happening. I'll just shut this off a second. So that ended up happening, and I finished the movie. So I really enjoyed what was going on behind the scenes. I ended up working with that production company as an intern for no cash or anything for the next couple of years. Done low budget feature.
No, slow up. That's a really important thing you said there, because people need to know that to get experience, they often need to swap their time and labor and for skills. But a lot of people are not willing to do that. So I
only did digital agency, you know, like, and see people coming in and saying, okay, what's the hourly rate? And they haven't even done a trial.
Yeah.
And like, you have not got a clue, you know, you don't realize. But I mean, I always do one trial day with them now, and then they go on to salary, or they don't, or they go on to an hourly rate, or they go on to a job rate, or whatever it is, or they don't. And we do have interns that come in for periods of time and want work experience, and I get that. That's organized by a company, and my manager Leanne deals with all that. But at that time, I wanted as much. I wanted as much experience. Money was irrelevant. I realized that I've had money before and I was unhappy. At this point, I was the most broke in my entire life. You know, I struggled every month to get rent.
Yeah.
I struggled every month. I always find money for booze for some reason. I don't know how.
It's like when I was an art student, there was always money to go out clubbing, but there was never any money to pay the bills.
Yeah, but I don't drink anymore off of 2.5 years. But at that time, I did. I loved it, and I enjoyed the crack with everybody. But no, we ended up. So I went through like a 2-year period of just working with that company, doing everything that I could, like asking questions, learning everything that I could, while I was like reading Bob Doyle's books, Joe Vitale's books, rereading The Secret.
Right. So you're still plowing through personal development stuff and coming across this concept that you can shape your own future.
Well, I started to realize, I was like, okay, right, my thoughts are coming with things, and they were happening very quickly, you know.
Yeah, it does. It's almost frightening how quick it starts changing.
But at that time, I wasn't doing it because I wanted to be a millionaire or wanted to be anything. Wasn't doing it because all I wanted to be at that time was actually happy.
Yeah.
Like, that's all that I wanted. I was going through a really, really tough time, and I was filling my head and my time full of like positive quotes and reading books and thinking, oh my God, there is going to be a future here. Oh, there is going to be, we are going to have, like, there is hope, light at the end of the tunnel. That's all I was looking for at that time. I wasn't looking for a Ferrari, a Lamborghini, you know, I wasn't looking for any of those things. I was looking for light at the end of the tunnel because it was a really, really difficult time through the recession, and anybody who went through it will understand that. And, you know, I still see it in Ireland here at the minute, where people are still living in hotels, and there's still, you know, there is an epidemic for housing here at the minute, but that's a whole different thing going on there. But at that time, I was reading all these positive quotes because it was like I didn't have anything else. It was like, what am I going to do? So I ended up then just going through it, and but then I started to see results from it. I started to see results. I was like, oh my God, this is happening. That's happening.
What were the first? No, I need more details. So what was the first indications? The first that all of this personal development stuff you were immersing yourself in was starting to work.
I had already sort of produced the movie Accident.
Produced a movie, yeah. So just by stepping in and doing it, yeah.
Yeah, by simply doing it. And at that point, I still thought I was an actor. You know, I hadn't copped it yet. You know, that it wasn't.
Nobody had actually had the balls to tell you yet.
So I ended up out in LA for 3 months in 2013, and I went for dinner with my next door neighbor, who was Gary. He was a producer. I think Gary was about 60. I don't know. I'm not sure, but there was a friend. A load of us went that he was older than me anyway, and I was like, saw him as somebody, right, I can like get information from that, you know, mentor type thing. That was my first kind of mentor. On that trip, actually, I met Steve G. Jones, who ended up becoming a really solid mentor for me.
Steve Jones, yeah, he's a hypnotist expert.
Yeah, he's a really good friend of mine. He's amazing. So at that time, and Gary asked me at that time, he said, you know, have you ever thought about producing? And I said, yeah, actually, like I've been toying around with the idea for so long. And he said, your personality strikes me as more a producer than an actor. And I said, okay. And I said, yeah. And he said, like, I'm going to give you a bit of advice. He said, you come to Hollywood, you come to LA. And he said, people said it didn't work out for me. He said, every single person gets the opportunity in LA. Every single person gets the opportunity in Hollywood. He said, but not everybody takes it. He said, if everybody was completely honest with themselves, they have had an opportunity that they've turned down or not taken that could have changed their lives. He said, so take your opportunities when they come. And within about 2 days later, the producer who had produced, or the director who had produced the Accident of Isabel Manfor, had messaged me about 2 days later on Facebook and said, I'm thinking about doing another movie. Would you be the full producer on this time? And, you know, not acting and just be the producer? And I said, yeah, 100%. That was 2 days after the dinner with Gary, and I was taking my opportunities when they came. So I ended up going back, arrived back in Dublin that Christmas, and then I was then I produced 2 movies for him, right up until the 1st of August, whenever I opened Bankhouse Productions, which is my film production company, which went from strength to strength ever since.
Wow, that's amazing, isn't it? I'm trying to absorb what you said there on a deeper level, because I think there's something really important there. Because it would have been so easy, and a lot of people would have said, "I'm not ready. I don't know how to do it. I'm scared." You know, but
just the one thing is, like, what I've learned is, I never know really anything. I never know what I'm doing at any time. Who does? Do you know what I mean? Because as soon as you learn something, the next day something else is out.
There's something else.
Another way of doing something. You know, look at Netflix. You know, it turned everything on its head. Look at, you know, IGTV now. Look at, you know, your YouTube channel. Look at even what we're doing right now on this live channel. Which,
I know.
You know, half an hour ago, I was just sitting having a cup of tea upstairs in the office with the guys. So and just chatting, and then we came down, and I'm actually in the edit suite downstairs at the minute. We have like we still are full film production. We still do. Like that's the thing. That's the niche that we have with digital media agency. We're very video driven, and that's what our clients get. So that's where I am at the minute. But just going back to what you said there, yes, it's so easy for people to say, "Oh, but you know, it wasn't for me. I didn't know how to do that." You know, that's you telling yourself. But I decided to tell myself that yes, I can do it. I think because I always struggled with dyslexia and didn't really understand what it was whenever I was younger, and there was no label on it. And I never wanted. I didn't go to a grammar school, but in the school that I was in, I didn't want to be in a lower class. I always wanted to stay with my classmates.
Yeah.
So I tried everything that I could. I was top. I was head over the full year. I joined every year with maths. You know, I was really top of my game with mathematics.
Maths. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
But English and everything else is struggle. But I think going back to that, I sort of have told myself, yes, I will do this. Yes, I'm going to do this. And I don't know if it's proving other people wrong, but maybe myself that I can do it. I don't know. But I got that into my head and I've adapted it into my life. And I think that everybody should, because I think it's a way for you to sort of set benchmarks. I think it's a way for you to sort of say, you know, just to prove to yourself that you can. Somebody tagged me in a post yesterday on Instagram about the ant where you draw the circle around it.
Yeah.
I've seen it. And it can't walk through the black line because it thinks that it's a wall, but once it crosses it, it never goes back. It'll never think that again. So if you just set yourself, you can just cross your black line essentially. But and then just go back. But I'm rambling here, so
yeah. So no worries. So okay. So then you did 3 movies, and then you started Bankhouse Productions, which is your company that you run now.
Well, that company wasn't in a position to take me on as an employee. You know what I mean? They weren't able to take me on. And at that point, I was like, right, okay, I need money here. Right, pop yourself on. I'd always been used to having money from I was young. I was like, right, you've had your fun. You know what you want now. Let's get your act together.
You know, it's what you want to do going forward.
Yeah, I kind of knew at that point. I was like, right, I know what I want. So I ended up. I had went and met with with a casting director that I knew really well, Maureen, and she ended up sitting down and wrote a letter out, which was going to a really big production company for me to join them as an intern type thing. Okay. And I came home that night and I thought to myself, I don't want to be an intern for another company. I've already done that. And I said, like, I never would have got a job at the level that I'm currently working at right now. So I had to go and open my own business. You know, I was never going to get employed for where I believed in my head at this point, because I've been reading so much stuff in personal development. I thought that I was running the show. So I opened my own company, but in that time period,
what did that look like? You sat down in a room in your house and you said, right, I'm now Bankhouse Productions.
Well, no, I'll tell you what happened. So I was on unemployment, right? So I was on unemployment and I could not afford to sign off unemployment and work legally, right? Because I had 188 quid. It's all I had. Like, my rent was 400, so I had like just under 800. My rent was 400. I was budgeting everything that I possibly could. I wasn't drinking as much at the time because I was getting focused. And I ended up, the unemployment services ended up like kept sending people out to my house to make sure I lived there. It was very degrading. It was a very degrading process, to be honest. And my family didn't really know I was even on it. My friends didn't know. I was kind of ashamed. I now know that that's my strongest. I feel that that is actually one of my biggest, strongest assets right now, looking back. But at that time, it was extremely difficult. I just couldn't tell anybody. I had houses and sports cars and holidays and whatever I wanted. And now I'm like, can't even afford rent. But so I ended up, this woman came to my house one day and asked, you know, can I see your bedroom? Because otherwise you have to prove, I swear this actually happened. You have to prove that you live here. And because I was from the north, I think they might have thought that I was fraudulent or something. I don't know what it was. I was saying, I don't want to be on this. I don't want to be doing this. I want to be, I've always worked. I've had a trade. I've had successful businesses. I don't want to be doing this. And me and her both, she said, well, why don't you go to the careers advisor and ask advice? So I left that day. I went up the street about, probably about 10-minute walk on the same street as I lived on. I went into the social welfare and said, I want to start my own business. This is what I've been doing. This is what I'm capable of. And I want to start my own business. And they put me in touch with a company called Inner City Enterprise. Right? And they specialize in helping people get back on their feet. And they got me onto a scheme where I was allowed to keep my unemployment for 1 year. Right. And I went to 75% in the second year. Now that was like getting a golden goose. Like, I swear to God, it was like, this is unreal. So I met with them. They really reassured me. And they said, the only thing you have to do is choose the name of your company. And I was sort of thinking, I was coming home feeling really buzzing. And the building that I lived in at the time, and the apartment that I lived in, was called Bankhouse. Nice. And so that's how I ended up calling the company Bankhouse.
They must have. You must have made their day. They must have been constantly interviewing people who had no clue about anything, no energy, no focus, no drive. And then you walked in the door and you must have blown their socks off.
Well, I'll tell you what's happened since. I've ended up being asked. I won Most Innovative Business of 2015 in Dublin, and I've ended up being the first ever member that came through the organisation to be asked to be on the board. And I now sit on their board. I had my first meeting last week, and we've had like so much, I do so much stuff for them now. I work on they have a young entrepreneur scheme where I go, and I've spoken at it 3 times now, and hopefully the next one I'm doing a full day on branding and mindset and everything like that. Okay. So in 5 short years of opening Bankhouse, it's their 5th birthday on the 1st of August. But we've had movies go all around the world. We've won awards. There's 11 people on the team now. We serve clients all over the world, really big clients. We're about to do a massive contract that I can't speak about at the minute, but we're doing it in the next 2 weeks. Exciting. The biggest thing we've ever done.
Yeah.
We're not live on the internet, but we end up, so things really snowballed, like out of control, to the point where, I now spend like traveling back and forth from the States. And yeah, I'm playing catch up all the time, which is brilliant.
Yeah. When I met you in Vegas, you went off to spend a month in LA then, didn't you? And you took a house on Airbnb, and there were people staying there, and people came
my cousin came out for a week for 10 days, and then my friend Matthew did, and then Aisling, who works with us, she's a client now essentially. She came down for 5 days. Daniel, my business partner in the Evolution of Success, was there with me. He ended up going off to Montana for 3 weeks to see his brother camping. So our lives now are really, really different to what they were a short time ago. Because I have a really good manager in Bankhouse. I have a really, really strong team. I love the guys that I work with. I brought them all away to Spain for our Christmas holiday, which was actually cheaper than taking them out for dinner in Dublin. So it sounds flash, but it actually saved me money. But we went there for 5 days to Spain, and we're going to do something again in September. But we do a lot of team building now. Everybody's happy. So they sort of, my team now like choose their own hours. They can work, like 2 of the guys are working from Italy for the first 2 weeks of August because they can.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't care. Like, I'm very easygoing as a boss, I find, and I think. And I just want them to be really, really happy. And I think
you trust people to be grown-ups and professional and to care enough about.
And they all trip up at different times, and that's actually okay. A few years ago, whenever I first started Bankhouse, I was very like, no, this has to happen, and you have to do this, and where are you today, and what's going on? But we actually now I don't really care. I'm just like, great. Like, everybody.
Okay. Good. Okay. Well, I want to ask you about the evolution of success, but first I want to get 3 tips out of you, because that's what I do with all my guests. Okay. I'm really interested in 3 things: mindset, marketing, and money. And I want you to just look back and think, if you were talking to an earlier Matthew, 18, 20 years old, whenever, what one thing would you want to say to him about mindset, and what one thing would you want to say about marketing, and what one thing would you want to say about money?
I think the 18-year-old version of me could probably teach me a thing or two, to be honest. I think I had absolutely that version of me had no fear whatsoever, like genuinely did not have fear. And I've tried to adapt that more. But looking back at the one that maybe was just turning 30 and was going bankrupt whenever he thought was meant to have everything sorted, I probably would just say, for the mindset one, just, keep doing what you're doing. If I hadn't looked into the mindset one, say for example, and I was given to someone who just was thinking they're trapped right now, they're kind of lost, they're like, what is my next step? It's like, you need to look and see, what are you happiest doing? Whenever I analyzed over the past like 10 years, 8 years at that point, probably from I was about 22, that was whenever I really wasn't happy doing what I was doing. So looking over and analyzing and saying, okay, what went wrong and what do I need to change? I was forced into it because I went bankrupt and was insolvent, and I was forced into it because I had no money and I had no other options. But I don't think you need to hit rock bottom to change your mindset. And that's what I always say to the guys that I'm working with. Once they come in through the door, I said, what do you want to work as? And they say, oh no, I want to be a social media content editor. And I'm like, no.
Whatever they've been hired for is what they think they need to say.
Yeah, that's what they're saying to me, right? And I'm saying, no, what do you want to do in the big picture? and usually comes out saying I want to be a film director, I want to write a script. So I kind of, because I try to adapt that into the job role. I'm like, right, okay, you have to do this, but then we have to, here's what we can do on the other side. So the main thing would be is try to figure out, redefine what success means to you for a start. Don't look at Instagram, don't do it off a Lamborghini, don't do it off anything like that. How much time do you want to spend with your family? How much time do you want to spend with do you enjoy your work life? 40 hours of your week, are you happy? If not, you need to address that. So for the mindset, it's being really honest with yourself and just saying, okay, I want to redefine what success looks like for me, and I want to set my own path and not somebody else's, or something that's been shown to you on TV or a lifestyle that's been given to you. So I don't know if that's where you were looking me to answer in, but I think that's kind of...
Yeah, absolutely. That's really important. And you didn't know, the thing is, you didn't know you were going to be happy being a film producer, but that guy in Los Angeles, Gary, he sort of knew, he saw your personality and knew that you had the right kind of personality to do it. And you trusted him as a mentor enough to give it a go, didn't you?
Well, before that, I actually had, I went to the Irish Film Academy, and my tutor there, Rachel Sarah Murphy, a really dear friend of mine now, Rachel said to me in the first term, you should be a producer. Like in the first, I think it was in the first 2-3 weeks. And I was like, I was thinking, is she trying to say I'm not a good actor? That's what I thought. I didn't think like, oh, maybe I should listen to that. At that time, I hadn't worked out. But now I listen to advice. Listen to advice and listen to people around you. Sure, maybe not your family, maybe not your parents or people.
Definitely not your family.
They're not going to understand. Like I don't think your family are going to understand. Like someone who understands, maybe you need to seek a mentor. Like mentors are massive for me. Richard Branson has a mentor, just to put it into perspective. Richard Branson has a mentor. So
yeah, everybody I know does. And the interesting thing is, once you decide to take responsibility for your own life and your own happiness and your own success, the doors start opening, because something happens to you, something in the way you look, something in the way you look people in the eye, something in the way you shake people's hands. It marks you out immediately as someone who is worthy of mentoring.
Yeah,
and people start to help and try and help. I mean, tell them how you came to go to Vegas the first time, because that's a great story, and that's a mindset thing.
Yeah, first time I went to Vegas was crazy. So Steve G. Jones ended up being my mentor, and I had said to Steve, whenever he met me, I was like going home to sign everything over to the banks. And next time he met me, I had a film production company. I was like, I had like all these things going on. I had movies and cinemas. I had all this stuff. And he said, you should make a documentary about this. He said, you need to make a documentary about this. And I said, who would be in it? And he said, well, Joe Vitale would be in it, and I would be in it. And he's like, yeah, really? Joe Vitale? What? And he just rang Joe on the spot, put him on the loudspeaker.
Oh my God. So this is one of the people you've been reading his books, and your mentor just picked up the phone to him.
Rang him and on loudspeaker was like, I've got this guy, Matthew, who's making a documentary. Would you be in it? And Joe just said, yeah, of course I'll be in it, And then that was it. So I went home, and I was sort of like working through, how do I make this happen? And he ended up saying to me, look, you need to speak to a guy called Peter Hallam. And I said, right, okay, I'll go and have a chat with him. So whenever I got a Skype call with Peter, I think Peter thought that I was trying to pitch to get Andy into the documentary, but what I didn't even know about Andy at this point. I just wanted Peter to be like an executive producer and help me with contacts. I didn't even know what I wanted, and he didn't know what I wanted. And I said, look, I'm probably going to have to, reschedule this call, because I know nothing about Andy. I want to do some research, and then I'll come back on the call to you. And he said, okay. And I said, can I come to London next week, the week after next, to meet you, because I'm going to Malta tomorrow? And he said, I can't, mate. I'm in Vegas. He said, tell you what, you seem pretty sound. If you want to come to Vegas, there'll be a ticket for you for the event. Meet me at the Round Bar on Sunday, the 8th of May, blah, 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 in the Palms Place. And I was like, okay. I was like writing them down. So I came off. I was going to Malta the next day, and then I came back and only had like 4 days. Then I would have had to fly to Vegas again. And this is me, kind of broke, to be honest. Still, the business was different. I was taking all the money.
Certainly no money to go and stay for a week in the Vegas hotel and pay the flights.
Yeah, and the holiday for Malta was actually gifted by a friend who was going away with his family, and said, my sister isn't coming, do you want to come? And I said, yeah. So it wasn't like I had loads of money at that time. I found the money, and I ended up flying to Vegas, and I went up to the Round Bar, and I ended up saying, hey, Peter, I'm Matthew. And he said, I can't believe you came. He said, I can't even believe you're here. He could not believe it that I actually came. But at that point, that really did, I think, set a benchmark in his head for what I was prepared to do. And I think that gave him good faith in introducing me to other of his contacts, or other of his people, more people that he knew.
Yeah.
So he felt no problem introducing me to people, because he said this guy had a conversation with me, got on the flight, done what he said. Yeah. So Peter then was like, right, okay. So at that point, then on that trip, I met Natalie Ledwell, who ended up being in the documentary, and a dear friend.
Co-founder of Mind Movies.
Yeah, Mind Movies, owns Mind Movies. I ended up meeting Lynn Rose, and and filmed with Bob Doyle, who's in The Secret.
Bob Doyle from the original Secret film, yeah.
Yeah, and then we also, what else? Who else did we meet? That ended up setting me up in there anyway with Bug Free Mind, and then I went back the next year, and I spent 3 days like at an event, and then filming with Jack Canfield. Yeah. You know, so
well, that's another thing, because this Vegas Mastermind, it's not just the people in the audience; it's the speakers that they get in are just top class. So I mean, it's just astonishing. Yeah. So okay, that's very cool. So now you're getting your ideas together for this film about what your journey and what had helped you, and now you're suddenly meeting all the people that you'd been reading their books from when you were at your lowest level.
Do you know what? I hadn't used my iPad in years, right? And before I was going on that trip, I thought to myself, right, this is on the second trip whenever I actually filmed with everybody. I didn't film them on that trip. I had to go back to the States and film them. Yeah. So I ended up digging out my iPad and was deleting off old scripts that I'd been reading and whenever I was acting. And I looked into the book section of the iPad, and it was a book from Bob Doyle. About 3 days before I went to meet Bob Doyle, I had completely forgot that I'd downloaded that book. I completely forgot that I read it. I kept it on and I showed him whenever I was there. And at that point, I had only stopped drinking probably about 3 months, 2 months. And I was sort of contemplating going back onto it. I wasn't sure if I wanted to stop drinking or what. And I met Bob that weekend, and he had just given up drink a year. And I said, but I've just given up 2 weeks or 2 months. I'm thinking about maybe having a drink, or I don't know what to do. And he said, just go another month and see. I said, okay. And he said, like, what about the end of that? He said, well, do another one, just see. And then now I'm like, I don't know, 2.5 years or 30 months off it or whatever. But Bob did really like help me in that moment. It's weird. And
it's like he was telling you that it doesn't necessarily have to be forever. You're just choosing to go another week or so, or another month or so.
Yeah, but even what he said, what he said was, people have said that to me. I don't know, because of so much synergy around reading The Secret, reading his books, finding the book on the iPad just before I went there, then filming it. And now we all have had like really deep conversations. We're really good friends, you know. And after the premiere, he was really emotional, and it was lovely.
Yeah, I've got a good story like that. When I first started, when I was really miserable, living in London, I was so poor I couldn't go out and have a sandwich. So I used to take my own sandwiches to lunch, and I was working near Oxford Street. And there was a Books Etc. opposite Selfridges just around the corner. And I used to go out, used to eat the sandwich and then go out for a wander. And I'd go to Books Etc. in Oxford Street, and I'd go down to the business section. And I was always looking for a new business book, you know, because I'd read Woman of Substance, How to Make Difficult Decisions, How to Love a Difficult Man. I've read all these books, and I was looking for a new business book, but I'd either read them all or I thought I had, and there was nothing there for me. So coming back out of the shop, a book literally fell off the shelf onto the floor in front of me, and it was Swimming with Piranhas Makes You Hungry by Dr. Colin Turner. And I read that book, and I started reading books again, like 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and I started on all the books. And I got myself a coach. I started reading Rich Dad Poor Dad, but what I totally forgot over the next 10 years was that I had gone and written a review on Amazon. I never did this, never, ever, ever, ever. I wrote a review on Amazon of this book, Swimming with Piranhas Makes You Hungry, because I read that book about 5 times. And I thought, there's something in here and I'm not getting it. There's something in here. And I was on the tube every day going backwards and forwards. And I was reading this book over and over again. And I finally found it. Right at the back, there's a drawing that says, this is when you leave school. I have to do it right. So, when you leave school, think of a graph. Okay. Yeah. So when you leave school, here's your income starting here at 0. So imagine that's the 0 line. And here's your income. Now, if everything goes as normal, your income is going to go up, isn't it? Now, imagine there's another line, and it's your outgoings. And as you go through life from 0 when you leave school, your income and your outgoings go up like that. And the difference between your income and your outgoings is what you can save. And that's where everyone stops. And that's exactly where I'd stopped. I thought there's no point in saving. Might as well spend it now. Might as well get it on a credit card. Might as well, have it now. And what I had missed my whole life up until that, reading that book and seeing that drawing, was the third line. It's what you can invest in that's going to generate an income. And it creeps along the bottom, and it creeps along the bottom, and it creeps along the bottom. And then suddenly it starts to do this, what's called a hockey stick curve, because you keep reinvesting the income from your investments back into your investments, you become financially free. And the point at which the line from your income from your investments hits the line of your outgoings, that's when you become financially free. And the bigger you can get between your income and your outgoings, the bigger gap you can make, the bigger amount you can invest, the quicker it all happens, and the quicker that line comes up. And it blew my mind, and it just was.
I'm going to read it.
Oh well,
yeah.
It's a lovely little book. It's all about how running with the pack makes you permanently hungry for stuff you don't need, and how all the piranhas swim in one direction. You have to learn how to go in a different direction from the other piranhas.
Well, that's the thing,
I haven't finished. I'm just going to tell you the story. And 10 years after all of this happened, I got an email from a guy called Dr. Colin Turner asking if I would like 500 copies of his book to give away to my audience, because somebody had sent him the review 10 years later that I'd written of his book 10 years before. And wow. I got him on my podcast and I interviewed the heck out of him. And we gave away 500 of his books, and it was just the most magical moment. So I totally understand what you say about meeting your heroes.
Oh, whenever, that's what I'm saying. Whenever you sort of doing all this stuff, and whenever I'd said you'll see it coming into your life. Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, that kind of stuff is just continuously happening.
Magic. It's synchronicity. There's a book called Synchronicity: The Inner Path of Leadership by Joseph Jaworski. And he's very interested in quantum physics, and he goes around the world interviewing all the best quantum physicists about the butterfly effect, which is what we're talking about here, about when you start to change your mindset, everything starts to fall into place for you, and things start to happen, and mentors start to appear. Anyway, tell me quickly your marketing tip and your money tip.
The money tip is definitely, I've just learned in the past while, it's like whenever you hit a bump in the road, like what I had before, people will automatically put their mind into that and think, oh my God, how do I save money? How am I going to pay that back? How am I going to, do all this? What I used to do all the time, and I used to think, oh my God, I need to try to save money. And then you're distracted by that and you become consumed by it. I just literally write everything down, say that maybe you've hit a bump in the road financially, you write down everything that you owe, like document it out, and then go straight back into focusing on how do I make money.
How can I create more? How can I afford
more money? Do I need to do overtime in my job? Do I need to take a second job? Do I need to, what do I need to do to get more money? What services do I have that I can now bring in more revenue for? Even if it's down to can I babysit? Can I be a babysitter? I opened a dog walking business through my whole period of on unemployment.
We haven't had time to cover that, have we? But you told me about that.
Yeah, I opened a dog walking business, and it was great. I made it was cash rich in the first month. I got flowers, I bought a van, a second-hand 1998 beat up van. I got insured, taxed. I went out and I had clients. I was walking dogs with 17 quid an hour, and I walked them all together. It's 15 quid if they took more than 3, and I just put flyers through doors. There's ways of bringing in money. You just have to think outside the box, and you have to focus on. That's my money tip. It's and also then I can go into various different money tips, as in create a, if you work for somebody and you're trading hours for money, then you're limited. If you have your own business, even a side business, maybe with a digital product, then you've no cap on how much money you can earn.
It's a double whammy here in a side business, because you're not only earning more, but you can start to offset some of your costs of the business, legitimate costs of the business, but things that you needed to live, which were being paid for out of post-tax income when you just had a job.
Like a home office, your car, your diesel,
your phone, your magazines, your
everything.
Yeah, exactly.
That, and then looking at, look at what you're really, really good at and see, and there is a way to see whatever your inner talent is, whatever you're really, really passionate about. I strongly believe that you have a capability of turning that into revenue. Everybody, in some respect. If you're a really good footballer, but you feel that you've missed the boat because you're 37 and you're never going to play professionally at this stage, you can coach. You can have a training camp at the weekend. You can open your own soccer school. You can do private coaching. If you went out to the States and you done private coaching for football, you could pay a fortune. You know, so everything that you possibly think that you're good at as a kid, and now you're working as a plasterer, but you're an amazing footballer, you can open your own football school for kids, you know.
And it'll make the day job more bearable as well, because you've got some reason, you know, something to, you'll be doing it to fund your passion, and that makes it more bearable.
And the more results you'll see, the happier you are doing it, and then you'll realize, wow, I'm getting paid for something that I'm really happy to do, and
that's a good feeling. Okay, so tell me your marketing tip. What did you, when you first opened Bankhouse Productions, what was the thing that helped you market it? What to attract what you needed? You know, funding for movies, good talented people. What did you do?
Like, your word is everything. You know, only if you say you're going to do something, do it. No matter what, no matter what, do it. Because I have got, like, most of my work in Bankhouse, we have spent in 5 years less than £1,000 on marketing. In 5 years, like less than 500, I would say. Maybe
sorry, I didn't catch that. Say that again slowly.
In marketing for Bankhouse Media and Bankhouse Productions, in 5 years we've spent less than £1,000 on marketing, like on advertising spend. Everything is word of mouth. You know what I mean? We have a really nice website that's easy to get that shows what we do, that has all our products front and at the foreground. So make sure that you have everything on display, you know, that you can do. Wherever your platform is, whether it's YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, website, business card, like have your, you know, think about what my thing on marketing is, what you need to do is think about your product, and then you need to think about who is your consumer on that product, who is my consumer, really nail that down and nail it inside out. Once you know your consumer inside out, you'll know where they spend their time. Are they in the car dropping their kids to school? Then you need to advertise on the radio between 8:30 and 9:30. Are they on Instagram? Then you need to look at, right, okay, what's the peak times of their outside work? Are they on Instagram between 7 and 10 while Love Island's on, and you're giving them their product then? So you have to get to know your consumer inside out, and then position your product where they live their lives in front of them at the time that they're there. And it's just research. And if you know your product really well, and you know your consumer, it's instinct. It comes naturally.
Yeah, it does, because I've always been my own customer. In effect, I've always started businesses that were aimed at people that had the same challenges I did, because they say you're best teaching what you need to learn. So I had to go and learn it and then teach it.
Like, I'm the same. I can only teach what I already have went through.
Yeah.
You know what I know. What's the point? It's too hard to teach anything outside that.
Good. All right. Now we're going to come to the end of the interview now, because I could actually talk to you for hours, and I'm sure Facebook Live would love us for it, but we really ought to wrap it up at some point. What are you most looking forward to over the next year? What's your biggest project, and what are you up to?
Well, there's a couple of things. So we're about to launch. So the Evolution of Success is, we've got then the Mindset program, which is being launched on Friday, which I'm very happy about.
This Friday?
Yeah, this Friday. We're just going out to our own list and going out to our own audience. We're just testing it now at the minute, but I'm really excited, because something that I have been working on for the past 3 months, and I just wanted it to be there, you know. So we've got it's really solid, and it's very good for like redefining success and getting your mindset in place. So that's like,
and on the front end of that is an absolutely amazing film, which is not only beautiful and lovely to watch, but it's very moving. And it's very, I found it surprisingly practical as well. It wasn't just...
Everything that I will ever do is practical, just FYI. Everything that I will do is practical, because, I don't know, you know, Steve G. Jones, my mentor, said it's because I'm a Virgo. I don't know, but I don't even know what that means. But all I know is that everything that I do is like, it has to be practical. It's not too much fun. So whenever we were going into the personal development world, I was thinking, I really want this to be practical. And I was like, I have much more to offer with marketing. So on the 14th of September, we're going to be launching our first event with our business, which is Mindset and Marketing. And we're actually going to be running events. We've got like an online academy being launched at that time. We've got an app. Everything is going to be really good, which I know that you're going to be excited about as well.
I am. I'm coming to Dublin. Woo!
Yeah, I was looking at venues upstairs. That's what I was doing this morning.
Well, you know, it's really funny, because the one thing I went to Vegas thinking I wanted to get out of going to Vegas was more speaking engagements, and nothing happened. I mean, lots of brilliant things happened all through the week, and an amazing deal that I'm working on at the moment. But it wasn't until the last morning, actually checked out,
breakfast.
But you offered at breakfast. You said to me, "Do you want to come and speak in Dublin?" And I was like, "Yes."
Yeah. No, I didn't even know that was your goal. I didn't even know that.
Well, I didn't tell anyone. I didn't know, So I didn't. Well, I didn't. I knew, but I didn't tell anyone. Well, so many other wonderful things happened. It seemed like a, or do you ever say to yourself, "I want this or better"?
Yeah.
You always got to leave yourself open for more.
Yeah. At the minute where I'm at the minute, I need to be careful because.
Yeah, you're manifesting like a mofo.
Everything is coming down. I said, I've got a meeting with a client at 2:00, which is going to come on board, a potential client, which we're just really finalizing things. And some of the other stuff that's happening at the minute is insane. It's so big. It's huge.
Yeah, I know. Behind the scenes, we have a good old chat, and some of it's not. Yeah.
I'm excited. I'm really glad you like the documentary, and I'm glad that you gave us a glowing review. I love it. I still watch it myself. I have to admit, I love the people that's in it.
Yeah.
It is practical, and sometimes I actually need it. It's the same thing.
Of course you do.
What I know now about the mindset things and personal development is you don't have to hit rock bottom to reach out for that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Whenever I did find it, I was at rock bottom, but now I've got a new coach myself, which I'm meeting with her on Friday, because I'm going into business consultancy and I want to know how to position myself in that market. And we've already been through with her, and she was the one suggested to me. Maybe we should look at business consultancy.
Brilliant.
How that looks.
There's an awesome book I'll recommend to you. It's called $1 Million Consulting by Alan Weiss.
List all these below. List all these books below.
I'll put them in the comments. Yeah, absolutely. I'll put all the
as well
in the comments. Yeah. So thank you very much, Matthew Toman. Thank you for being available at no notice whatsoever. Thanks for just hustling downstairs and sorting it out and being my very first interview on Swagger and Soul.
The upstairs office is much, much nicer. We're actually right in the centre of Temple Bar, and it's great. It's much nicer, but it's full. We have a full house.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, I really appreciate you. I really love the fact that we've made friends, and I'm really grateful. Looking forward to seeing you in Dublin in September.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Matthew Toman. Speak soon. Bye. That was awesome. Thank you.